Jeff, thanks for your time.
Absolutely. Thank you, Raj.
Darrell, thanks for making the time.
Thank you for having me.
You're a director at the St. Louis Economic Development Partnership, STL Partnership for short. You're also the manager of the Heartland Regional Investment Fund. Darrell, you're the vice president of business finance at the St. Louis Partnership. You're a part of the lending arm.
It's essentially a group of different entities that all work with the goal of improving life in St. Louis.
We don't simply just send out, okay, here's the application. We let them know, okay, contact us and we can walk you through the process of filling out that application. And one thing I'm always telling people is ask questions. Anything that's going to be for the betterment of the St. Louis community, we're willing to take a chance on.
Got it.
Because, we're a nonprofit, so we're here to help.
Jeff, thanks for your time. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you, Raj.
You're a director at the St. Louis Economic Development Partnership, STL Partnership for short. You're also the manager of the Heartland Regional Investment Fund, which is, I think, pretty unique, and I can't wait for us to chat about it. STL Partnership, I think, is something that is vital to the region, but a lot of folks aren't aware of exactly what you guys do. Would you mind giving us a very brief overview of what STL Partnership is?
Sure. And, in a previous manifestation, it was called the St. Louis County Economic Council. And so, it's essentially a group of different entities that all work with the goal of improving life in St. Louis, improving businesses and improving trade. And we have the World Trade Center that does quite a bit. And that we could go on for a whole podcast about what they do. We help immigrants. We do Chapter 100 tax abatements for projects. And of course, the Heartland Regional Investment Fund is part of that as well. We work with St. Louis County Real Estate, and created T-Rex and some other important projects throughout the region, including I can't think of the name of the studio, but there's a studio in Chesterfield that we were involved with, and so that's some of the recent stuff we've been doing.
You've been involved with the partnership in over $40 million in new market tax credits, correct?
That's right.
That's vital projects all around the region. But your story is very interesting because you were previously in residential multifamily real estate for almost 20 years, over 200 million in sales,
Yep.
Various apartment communities across the Midwest primarily.
Yeah. Yep.
That's how we met as well.
That's right. That's right.
I think that background is extremely important for you to bring into, your current position.
Sure.
Being someone who was born and raised in the St. Louis region, I'd love to hear your story from the start. I have another privilege of hearing it from day one, let's say.
Yeah. Well, first I'll say I've seen your podcast a few times, and some of these folks have come on here like they get there's some great takeaways about how you improve your life or your daily activities and things like that. I'm certainly not that person, right? I'm the Joe the plumber of white collar work here. I started out in media. I worked for the news for a little while, realized that wasn't my passion. My sister had started a real estate company a few months prior, and she said, sure, you can come join me and see how it goes. And, she started the first discount brokerage in the region called St. Louis Realty, and it really did well. We in the early 2000s, we were, working with McBride & Son Homes to list all their inventory and do all their home sale contingent referrals. And that was as a preferred realtor. And at some point, I had seen that the market was shifting. Some of those folks in some of the lower income communities that bought houses, I started seeing their loans that had variable rates and so on. They start to go upside down. And so I thought, well, maybe I'll start looking at apartments. I've always enjoyed 2s and 4s and things of that nature. So I was the first agent at Marcus & Millichap St. Louis in 2005. We launched. And, things were going along pretty well into the Great Recession. And at that point, I was fortunate enough to be invited to work for BJC Healthcare in the program management office within the Center for Clinical Excellence, and really learned about altruism. And, it was just a completely different world than investment sales, right? And a different cast of characters. But at some point, like a lot of the deliverables weren't as tangible as real estate. Real estate's it's real. It's I know when I do a good job is when the property's sold and everybody's mildly happy about the transaction, right? But so I returned to my passion in real estate and did pretty well. I did what I'd set out to do, and I did focus a lot on workforce housing. I did a whole lot of low-income tax credit deals, broken deals. I'm no Matt Buchstaber or no Ken Aston, but I was in the arena, and I did, and I knew the business well. At some point in 2022, was driving to work and had a hit and run. Driving to show a property, had a hit and run, left me with a concussion for a couple of weeks, and after that laying in bed for a while, I was just kind of trying to think of what's important, and after the smoke cleared, I'm here at the Heartland Regional Investment Fund, still practicing real estate on the side, but really my main focus is this fund and the impacts that it can create.
You were born and raised in Arnold, Missouri, correct?
Yeah, yep.
And you were raised by a single mother. So would it be fair to say that a lot of your business real estate experience came through trial and error, hard work, and grit? In other words, you weren't just handed any of these positions that you found yourself in.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I didn't have a background in business or finance or anything like that. So, I was good at big math, but, a lot of this stuff was a lot of trial and error and a lot of faking it till you make it, kind of attitude. So
when you mentioned kind of like what's important to you and the impact that you're able to make on the region as a whole today, was St. Louis as a region always kind of near and dear to you from, the early days in Arnold to where you are today?
Well, sure. I mean, it was always fun to come to the city and see, like a whole different world, because Arnold back in the 80s was a pretty quiet little town. But, as I was selling real estate, you had to sell the neighborhoods, you had to sell what's happening. And so from that point, I kind of fell in love with St. Louis. And then from the perspective of working some of these, projects in areas that are disadvantaged, I started, having feelings for the people that would come and say, "Hey, are you the landlord? I don't know where the landlord is, but I've got some problems, and I'll tell you." And so, I started, thinking hard about a lot of those experiences, and it helped, that my decision to kind of make this switch.
So let's talk about, some of the impact you're making today through your current position and current role with STL Partnership. Can you give us high level what Heartland Regional Investment Fund is doing, and then also your primary project types that you're focused on?
Sure. So, and did you want me to give you a background of the?
Sure, I think that'd be helpful.
Yeah, so it's been around the program's been around for 20 years, and it's aimed at financing projects and low income census tracts that are typically around $8 to $10 million real estate projects. That's the basic structure, AB structure. But it's for development, working capital, renovations. It's typically some type of manufacturing and or some type of community goods and service.
So can I ask a question real quick there? You said a real estate project and you're saying primarily manufacturing and things like that. So are we talking if you were to build, a manufacturing facility in a underserved part of St. Louis, that's the focus?
Right.
Okay.
Right,
so
right.
Not if you wanted to come in and build a retail center or apartments.
Well, so I can tell you a little bit about so some of the projects that we funded. I mean, from the old history, we were a part of Northwest Plaza. We were a part of North Point. We've done projects with financing industrial projects. But as of late, we've been doing things like the R&R Marketplace in Dellwood, which is a former Schnucks Plaza that sat vacant for 10 years. Mom and pop pastors had a dream to renovate it and create it like a multi-service community center where there's job training, where there's daycare, where there's a banking that isn't predatory, where there's a drug rehabilitation, center where intake and so on. And years later, with help of other entities and us, it's open, it's thriving, and we've recently financed Operation Food Search. They feed about 200,000 children across the region every month, and work with a bunch of food security, organizations across the region in Missouri and Illinois. But they needed larger fridge space. They needed new offices for new programming, and we were a part of that. The Alton Works project is something that we've financed since I've started, and that's it's a tech incubator and workforce development and all kinds of neat things in the Alton area.
So when you say financed, are you guys stepping in where a community bank would normally be, or what does that look like?
So there's community reinvestment requirements for banks. I work as a sub-allocatee for the Department of Treasury, which is through the CDFI fund, right? We get licensed as a community development entity, and then we apply for these credits. These credits mean nothing unless I have a project and also an investor for the credits. So we go to big banks like U.S. Bank. U.S. Bank is is big in that space, and they've got a large presence in St. Louis. They buy the credits. Some others do too, and then we work with local banks or regional banks like Enterprise or Midwest Bank Center, and they'll get a leveraged loan through the program. So typically the interest rate is 1 to 2 points under the prime. And it's a 7-year interest-only, non-recourse loan. And then my equity usually covers 20% of the total project cost, and that's the B note. And at the end of the 7-year compliance period, there's a $1,000 put, and it goes away. So, and then they refinance.
So if I could just run through a scenario with you. Let's say I was a real estate developer and I wanted to work with you on a project.
Yep.
One, what's the ideal deal size? Or is there an ideal deal size?
Well, typically 7 to 10 million.
Yeah.
Some projects can be 20 million or more. And in that case, if there's a need, sometimes multiple CDEs will come and invest. Like Alton Works, we worked with McCormick Baron Salazar. They had a $10 million allocation. We had a $9 million allocation.
So let's say it's a $10 million project, mixed use, retail, office, or residential component. This project is in an underserved area, but how are we defining underserved? Is it based on income or?
It is based on income, and there is a really easy tool a mapping tool that I can send out to everybody.
Sure.
And they can just track it. Now they've just added a new parameter called deep distress, which is it's certainly the CDFI fund favors projects within those ranges. There's mild and severe distress. We invest in projects that have mild distress. If there's like secondary indices, like is it in a food desert? Is it an opportunity zone? Things of that nature.
So let's just say East St. Louis. I think East St. Louis would qualify. So I'm doing a $10 million project. It's mixed use. We're doing it in East St. Louis. Let's just say we have the land tied up, and we're trying to put together the debt and equity.
Right.
Is that the ideal time to bring you in?
Yeah, I mean, especially there's a couple of good times. One is like in the planning phases, so we can consider this as part of all of our plans. Secondly, is like the new market tax rate is supposed to be the last piece. So if you've got the rest of your capital stack in place, that's when you've got a well thought out plan. That's when you come to us, and then we bring it to our. I have an advisory board and a big board, and so we have to take it through that process for approval. But yeah, basically that's the process.
How long would the approval take, roughly?
Within 60 days or something like that. It just depends on timing the board, the board meetings and so on. But one thing I will note, because I know, my real estate days, a lot of folks like mixed use developments. The one parameter in the program is that the office or retail component of a mixed use of multifamily has to be 20% of the income, the pro forma income. So it's kind of hard to qualify that, but that's
a minimum of 20%.
20% or greater, yeah.
Okay.
And then that's something to consider. But yeah, I mean, we did, as far as the different types of projects, we just financed the Jackie Joyner-Kersee Food, Agriculture, and Nutrition Innovation Center here in East St. Louis. And that was a partnership with Lansdowne Up, which is a nonprofit, the Donald Danforth Plant Science Center, the University of Illinois Extension, and then Jackie Joyner-Kersee Foundation. They plan to do a 20,000 square foot food, agriculture, and nutrition innovation center. They're going to be doing gardening and a host of programs with children to tackle food insecurity, and also be like an ag tech jobs incubator, and also provide a bunch of data that's important to Danforth and all the people trying to kind of solve for these global issues, which is really great.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I can see why, you'd want to be a part of this kind of impact in the local community.
No, absolutely.
So going back to a hypothetical scenario,
Right.
If let's say my mixed use project didn't hit that 20% threshold,
Right.
and I wanted to come back to you with another project, but I'm a for-profit developer,
Right.
would a hotel work?
Hotels work, office works, industrial works, retail works. You can't really, it's not really a good program for like speculative, but if you have a tenant and that it's,
Yeah.
that they have, equipment needs or something like that, that's certainly, that's certainly an opportunity.
So if I was doing, let's say, a $10 million office building, then just to
Right.
make sure we're checking all the boxes, we have a tenant in place, and let's say the tenant's a nonprofit even, how much equity would the developer need to come up with in that $10 million example, given the fact that you have that A-B?
Right. Well, I mean, the nice thing is that there's, with this program, like as part of the closing process, you have to come up with a better rates and terms verification. So it just depends on the deal and the sponsor and everything else.
Okay.
It's sometimes you don't have to come up with much. Sometimes they require more. But the B loan, if it was a $10 million deal, is somewhere north of $2 million. So that's what we, the fund would provide.
Got it. So everything we just discussed, is that your core focus today, or are there other parts of the program as well?
Well, yeah. So that's our core focus. We're every year we apply for new tax credits. Okay, and we have to build a list of projects to say, hey, the Department of Treasury, we're probably going to do these things. And so I'm here to say, hey, we're doing another application. This year's a double round, which means that in a perfect world, I can ask where they're going to have 10 billion versus 5 billion. I may ask for up to 100 million. So that's going to be 100 million for my footprint, which is St. Louis County, St. Charles City, and then over here on the east side, Madison, St. Clair, Clinton, and Bond counties. So any project in any of those areas is, that fits that sizing. That's where I wanted to talk to somebody and see what kind of impacts, or what kind of, what the plan is, where the job creation might be, and, see if it could be a part of the pipeline.
Sure. And it sounds like that 20% minimum office retail, if you're doing an apartment deal, is the reason why the deal I had in Bond County wasn't a fit, because that was 100% multifamily.
Right.
Makes sense. So it checked all the boxes except for that one, or most of the boxes, call it. So and that's another reason why it's probably important for folks to chat with you early in the process, so they can truly see if you're the right fit, or if they need to look somewhere else.
Right. And then there is another product that we have. So as part of, sometimes to get the application process is highly competitive. So sometimes CDEs like myself have to say, hey, we're going to do innovative investments too, which is much harder to do, but it's typically short-term loans and small balance loans. And so in order to do that, probably the easiest way is to work with a fund manager to source and keep, because it's a 7-year compliance period. But if you have short-term loans, those are going to turn over at least once, right, during the time. So we work with a fund manager named Advantage Capital that is helping us, find the businesses. That can be real estate projects as well. That can be, it's working capital, it's, equipment purchases. But the difference there is there's no free money at the end of this period. It's just patient capital, usually in the second position, that is, I think a lot of times the comparable, community banks and stuff like that will, with this type of borrowing, is 12 to 16%. This is more like 8 to 12, and there's interest only involved. And, it's 1 to 4 million is kind of that strike zone.
What are some of the boxes we need to check there if we're a potential borrower, whether it's a business that needs operating capital or a real estate project?
Right. Well, so first off, is it in the low income census tract? And secondly, it's not a great program for startups, but it's more of like, hey, we've been doing this for a while, and now we're kind of trying to get to that next level, and so that's important, and then how many jobs you're creating, and also as a secondary indicator, like is there beyond jobs, well, when it comes to jobs for all the program, is it what type of jobs are they? Are they living wage jobs? Are they are they offering jobs to people that don't have a lot of that might need some training, or might not have the degrees and things of that nature, but yeah, so those are things that our low, we have to go back to our low income communities and say, hey, we're being accountable, and we're making sure that we're trying to take care of everybody, basically.
Makes sense. Appreciate that information. Is there anything else you think we should cover on the Heartland Regional Investment Fund? I think it's a great program, important program for the region. So I just want to make sure we don't miss anything on that piece.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, right now, I'm nearly out of allocation. So I did apply last year for 50 million in tax credits. We find out in the next month or two if we're gonna get those, and then again we're gonna apply for a large amount. So potentially in the next, basically, once I get allocated, I have up to about 4 years to get it out. So in the next 4 to 6 years, I could have 150 million plus to help benefit businesses and real estate projects and communities around the region.
And that's money you kind of have to put out, right? Like you don't have to, but if you don't put it out, you just lose.
No, if you don't
right?
use it, you lose it. So that's
Sure.
the thing. I have to get it out there, and it has to be impactful as well.
And is this a competitive process for you guys? Like, are there other municipalities or regions kind of trying to get their hands on the same capital or tax credits, I should say?
Well, so the community development entities, the CDE is the group is the entity that I am. The Heartland Regional Investment is. There's CDEs throughout the nation. Some of them are nonprofit, some of them are for profit. Some of them focus solely on rural areas. Some of them focus solely on industrial, all around the country. We're a little different, where we have a very small geographic footprint. It's just it's St. Louis, the St. Louis region, except for St. Louis City. St. Louis City has their own CDE with the SLDC, and they're one of the most successful CDEs in the country. They've got a great track record. They've won several times, and lots of big, you named 10 projects in the last 10 years that were big, that Green Street or others have done, and that fund was a part of it.
Sure. That's awesome. I want to be respectful of your time, Jeff, and we have
Sure.
to get Darrell on here soon as well to
Yep.
talk about other parts of the STL partnership. I do like to ask every guest, and I think you'd have, I'm sure, a very intriguing response to this given your background and the important work you do today. If you could provide your hole-in-one, which is just your number one tip someone can implement in their life or business today, what would it be?
Stay humble. Before the fall, there's pride, I think, is something. I'm not good with Bible quotes, but I think pride comes before the fall. And if you think you know everything, you don't. And so, with every new investor, every new partnership, just stay open and to the possibility you're going to learn something new every day. And that's about it.
I love it. I think that's a great hole-in-one. So people can go to stlpartnership.com to learn more
Yep.
about the STL partnership, including your area of expertise. And then they can find you on LinkedIn, correct?
That's right.
Jeff Colona.
That's right.
All right. Jeff Colona on LinkedIn, stlpartnership.com.
That's right.
All right. Thanks, Jeff. Appreciate
you.
your time. Darrell, thanks for making the time.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
I really appreciate it. So I knew you from your banking days until you switched over to your new role, which I think was about a year ago now, or a little over a year.
Actually, it's 3 years now.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah,
So time flies.
we met after I pursued you, after you had been named one of the rising stars by the business journals.
Well, I appreciate you saying that, and it means a lot coming from someone who was named one of the 100 people to know in business in 2023. And for those who aren't familiar, Darrell, you're the vice president of business finance at the St. Louis Partnership. You're working with the St. Louis Economic Development Partnership.
Yeah.
My apologies.
It's a long
Yeah,
word.
yeah. My apologies. The website is STL Partnership, if I'm not mistaken. You're a part of the lending arm, which is something that I think a lot of people don't know about, and they don't know that it exists. I didn't know until you educated me on it. So I'm excited for this conversation. We just talked to Jeff earlier and got his piece of the partnership. So I think your piece is equally as important, and a lot of folks listening, watching will get a ton of value out of it. To give some more background, aside from being the vice president of business finance, you're also very active in your local community. And I've seen that. You were generous enough. You probably don't even remember. It was maybe like 8 years ago. You invited me to a Kirkwood Chamber of Commerce
I do
event.
remember that.
So you're very active in your local community. You're also on a number of boards, including the Kirkwood Planning and Zoning Commission. And aside from that, this is just my personal opinion. You're just, I think, a tremendous person with a tremendous story. So to kick it off, would love to hear about how you grew up, where you grew up, and if we can lead to it, your first taste of the business world.
Sure. I'm a native St. Louisan. I was born and raised here. I went to the other side of the state to a little school. At that time, it was called Park College. Now it's called Park University. It was funny. Went to Northwest High School, and a recruiter came over from Park and made the place sound like the land of milk and honey. And I told him things I like. I said I like things to do outdoors. All you can do that. I said I'm a president of our bowling team. He goes, oh, we have our own bowling alley. And I say I also was on the soccer team. He goes, oh yeah, we have a great soccer team. So he had all the answers, and so, without taking a test run to Park College, my mom and stepfather drove me there, and we get there, and outside of Parkville, which is where it's located, outside of North Kansas City, there is a moniker right there in the middle of the road that says, "Welcome to Parkville, home of Park College." And I'm like look over at my mom like, the claim to fame of this town is the school. But I fell in love with the place. It was a small liberal arts school. At that time, it had a religious affiliation. It no longer does. And I got a chance to get so involved in the community, or the college atmosphere. Like my freshman year, I did play soccer, ran track, and also was sports editor for the school newspaper. And so my sophomore year, I was a resident assistant, and I had it gave me my first foray into international experience, because most of the people on my floor were all from different countries, and we got along so great. I got to learn about different cultures, and I still have some clothing to this day. I'm going to tell you how old it is, from Micronesia, from some gentlemen, students I knew from Micronesia. And so then my junior year, I got a chance to become executive director of the college activity board for the student body, which basically meant that I was overseeing all the activities for the student bodies, whether it be what movies we're going to be watching, what speakers we're going to be bringing on board, what dance, everything else. So it gave me my first opportunity to oversee a group of people. So that was fascinating for me as well. And then my senior year, me and another gentleman, Dana Parker, who's I still in contact with now, we ran for student bodies president and vice president. He ran as president, I was vice president. They elected me, they didn't want him. And so I was vice president of the student body in my senior year. And I also got a chance to work for the local newspaper at selling advertising. So that was a great experience. I still am in contact with some people that I know from my days of Park. My business background, I started working when I was 12 years old, selling TV guides door to door. That's my first foray into business. And then I worked, I was big for my age, so I was able to work for Steak and Shake, even though I was not 15, which is supposed to be, I was 14, but I was so big. And so I worked there as a car hop. And I did that for a couple of years. And then I was also playing sports in high school. And so my first job out of college was working for household finance. And I got to the point where it was my time to get my own office. And I remember the regional president meeting with me, he goes, "Darrell, you've done a phenomenal job. And we've got two great locations for you to run your own office. One was Waterloo, Iowa, and the other was Ottumwa, Iowa." And I said, "Sir, with all due respect, you don't send an African-American to those little farming towns." And he said, "Well, Darrell, with your unique abilities, I think you could fit in anywhere," which is true, but I also like the big life, the city big life too. So I passed and I started looking for another job. And luckily for me, a former colleague was now over at a company called Sherwood Medical. And I interviewed there and got the job there as a regional credit and collections rep. I was responsible for setting the credit lines for their accounts in 6 states. They were manufacturing medical products. They made needles and syringes, blood collection items, pediatric stuff, wound care. As a matter of fact, one of my first deals I did when I took over my territory, our largest account was Cook County Hospital, and they had a seriously large amount of receivables that were over 120 days late, and so I cut them off. I wasn't really sending orders, and my boss was we were divided into half the West and the other half was in the East. We were part of the East, and my boss was a great guy. Perry backed me up and said, "Okay, this is your territory. So how you want to handle it?" His counterpart was the opposite. He's like, "Well, we can't do this. This is one of our largest accounts. We can't do that." I said, "Well, it doesn't matter if they're not paying. Doesn't really matter." And as a matter of fact, I got a call from a pediatric doctor calling me up, saying, "Hey, Mr. Scott, why do you want to kill babies?" And I said, "Well, sir, I'm not trying to kill anybody. What you need to do is go down to your accounts payable department and look at them and go, why do you want to kill babies?" So needless to say, the next day I get a call saying, "Okay, we're overnighting a check," and the check was sent, and we released the account. And it's funny because I started off in credit collections, and then 2 years working at Sherwood, I got promoted into marketing, where I'm dealing with the product manager, setting the pricing guidelines for all the products that we manufacture. And I'm calling down to the credit department saying, "You got to release those orders. You got to release those orders." So I flipped the switch, and they're like, "Well, how quickly we changed?" I said, "Well, I'm on the other side of the fence now, so I have a different directive than what I was down in credit." And so that I loved working for Sherwood Medical. I was there for a number of years. One of the cool things about Sherwood is that their products. Well, there was a show on NBC called ER, and a lot of the products used in that show were manufactured by Sherwood Medical. So they were sold. The parent company sold them to Tyco Healthcare. I had an opportunity to go to Massachusetts, but I passed, and I I applied for a position with Deutsche Financial Services, which is a division of Deutsche Bank, and I received the Dear John letter, said, "Thank you for your resume looks great. We'll keep it on file." And I'm like, "Yeah, great." It's right there to the trash. And unbeknownst to me, 2 weeks later, I get a call from Deutsche saying, "We'd like you to come in for an interview." I went in for the interview. and I was hired, and I loved working for Deutsche. It was a great training program for in terms of really lending and the different aspects of lending. And I still would probably be there, but 2 years after being there, I got wind that Deutsche Bank was planning on selling off that division. And I said, I just went through this two years prior with Sherwood. And so I accepted a position at U.S. Bank, and that started my foray really into banking.
Would you say the experience with the larger organizations is what kind of led you to be with some mid-sized banks? Because I think when we met, you were with more of a mid-sized regional bank
Yes.
versus the large conglomerate.
That is correct. My preference was for a smaller bank. When we met, I was working at a bank that had $1 billion in assets, as compared to a larger bank like U.S. Bank, and I loved that because it was more about relationships, and I pride myself on relationships, because there are lenders that simply only want to just get your business and then they go on to the next one. I'm the kind of person that will call you up and say, how you doing? Like, and I've done, even though we didn't even do business, I still call you up and say, hey, how's the family, stuff like that. And because it's about people. And I've always was raised that way. I was lucky growing up. My mom was a single mother raising kids. And so I had an absentee father, like a lot of African Americans in this market. But my mother was blessed to meet a gentleman named William Custard. He had already raised his family, and he took us on. That guy was phenomenal. I mean, I never saw him raise his voice once, and I gave him a couple opportunities to do so, but he was always so level keel. He reminded me of Ward Cleaver on Leave It to Beaver, or Bill Cosby on the Cosby Show, and I had so much respect for him. And yeah, I had a couple of strokes that left him really incapacitated. And I remember his oldest son came out to see him, and he said, well, you really love him? I said, yeah, I really do. I said, there's nothing I want to do for him. And my stepfather once paid me the highest compliment ever. He said, you treat me better than my own kids do.
I think that speaks volumes to the type of person you are. You come across as someone who truly cares about those around them, and then also your local community, like we were saying before. So, you're a guy that grew up in North City. You went to college. You became the first person in your family with a master's degree. One of 7 kids. I was going to say oldest of 7 kids, but I don't think that's the case.
No, in the middle, and I was raised with 6 sisters.
Okay.
I had the worst hand-me-downs ever.
And you're somebody who, in community banking, you're trying to impact your community, and now in your current role, you're impacting your local community. What was the catalyst for you switching over to your current position with the St. Louis Partnership? And then also, can you speak on the impact you're having in the community, what programs you're offering, and,
Sure.
and what you have going on?
I've always been about service most of my life. I mean, I've always volunteered in some capacity. As a matter of fact, my better half calls me Dudley Do Right, because I'm always trying to do things. She goes, oh, there you go. You're volunteering for this, or you're volunteering for that. And there's sometimes you feel, and she has to rein me in sometimes, because sometimes I do stuff and I feel like I'm not doing enough. And she's like, well, you donated all this stuff right here. And like, for example, there's an event coming up that I'm tied to the organization, and they didn't have that many things for raffling. And so I went on and got more stuff, and I'd already donated stuff, and I felt like I needed to do more. And so I was at the point where I wanted to, the banking atmosphere for me, environment had changed so that it is more driven. A lot of the smaller banks are being gobbled up by the bigger banks, and their philosophy is totally different than my philosophy. They're more relying on algorithms to make some decisions instead of relying on the people. And so then I saw the ad for partnerships position, and I thought, I'm at this point in my life where I want to do more in terms of helping a small business and giving and continuing my philosophy of giving and giving back. And I realized, I mean, in essence, I really took you taking a cut in pay to take this job because that's how important it is for me to help the local economy that I live in. And so I took the job. And I have a team that I oversee, great people, very seasoned people, which really helped the transition for me so well because while I had done 7A loans, I had never done a 504 loan, and it's totally different animal. And so what we do is we handle the SB 504 loans requests for the city and the county, and we can actually go anywhere in Missouri to do a loan. One of my team members actually did a loan outside of Kansas City. That's how well we're thought of it by some of the banking community. And then we can do 8 counties across the river in Illinois. And we have done several over in Illinois as well. What we also manage is a small business loan program for the city and the county. The city and the county both injected funds, and there are also EDA government funds as well, where we can do a small business loan, and this works great for somebody who may have been turned down by a bank, and they can come to us, see whether or not we can get them to the finish line. And we've done a lot of startups. I mean, we just did one for a brand new chicken franchise. Even though there's a lot of different chicken places here, this is a brand new concept franchise that's coming into this market. And this person has no experience in this industry, but what was the selling point for him was that he was bringing on a seasoned team of people who had experience in the fast food industry. And so that was the way that we were able to present this and get it approved. And so typically, like I said, you've been turned down by a bank or a credit union, and you can come to us. Or you could be in a position where, okay, you're working with a bank or a credit union. For example, you're buying a building, and that bank may only be lending like 70% of the value of that property. They can come to us and say, hey, we still need some money for working capital or equipment. And we can try to utilize that remaining equity in that property to get them the money that they need to get. And there's nothing more rewarding. For example, there is a gentleman that has a sauce business, and I've known him and his wife for a number of years, and there is not a more passionate, driven person than these two people, how much they have sacrificed to put this business together. I mean, they were selling all over. They were producing this sauce at St. Patrick's downtown. And I always was saying, hey, whatever steps you make, talk to me first. I want to see if I can help you avoid some of the pitfalls that you might step into. And they did a co-packing situation where the co-packer was making so much more than they were. And I'm saying, why did you talk to me about this? But they're is so desperate to get to the finish line, and that they just simply didn't see the forest before the trees. And so we were able to get them into their own facility, and now they're producing their own sauce, and they are their own boss in terms of what the cost is and everything like that. And there is nothing more rewarding than seeing somebody who has spent 20 plus years trying to get their product to be able to produce their own product, and now they're able to produce their own product. And the other thing that what we do is our office handles the industrial revenue bond requests for the county. These are tied to manufacturing, low-income housing, assisted living, 501(c)(3)s, and special tax districts. And another example of a rewarding situation was me and my boss. We were at a groundbreaking out in Wellston last year for 180 units going online. And anybody's been to Wellston, I was born in Wellston, so I knew it during its heyday when there was movie theaters, J.C. Penney's, Woolworths. It was the hub for bi-state. And so to see it fall to such disarray is a little bit disheartening for me. And so for us to be a part of that groundbreaking, knowing that, okay, this could be the first step in revitalizing that area was exciting for me.
That's amazing. 180 units. Was that
180.
Was that a LIHTC deal then, or?
No, it's a developing group. I can't think where they're located, but it will be units. There'll be a combination of senior housing, primarily low-income housing. It could be a mother, who's has kids and they can't afford to be somewhere else. So the rent's going to be at a price point that'd be affordable for a lot of people who have low income means.
Makes sense.
Yes.
That's an amazing
Right,
project
yeah.
to be a part of. In terms of the lending, what would you say your ideal borrower looks like? You said, they've been potentially turned away from a bank or a credit union. Do you have anything else in terms of outside of location, industry, loan size, anything of that nature? Or is it just if you're in the geographic area you talked about, you've been turned away, potentially they can come to you for a loan?
Well, with the SBA 504 loan, those are $5 million. They can be anywhere from, we typically look at ones anywhere from $100,000 to $5 million. And the beauty of that program, for example, is somebody a business owner who's in manufacturing, they can get a loan for one SBA loan for the building, and then get another loan for heavy equipment. And for the building, the beauty of the product, that loan is that it locks in a rate for 25 years. And that can be huge in a rising rate environment. In terms of our small loans, those typically are about $30,000 to $150,000. They can be in any industry. The only thing that we don't deal is in marijuana and gambling. But we've done restaurants, we've done daycare centers, we've done manufacturing, we've done advertising, marketing, convenience stores. So, and like I said, we've done it all. Those, except for those areas.
For the SBA 504, what would the rate approximately look like today? Or
Well,
has
the rates are in the low sixes right now, and with the Fed anticipated of lowering the rates next month, that's only going to help to make the rates go down.
Got it. That makes a lot of sense. What are you seeing today in terms of the climate for small businesses? Are you seeing small businesses struggling more today than they were a few years ago?
There are certain things. Is that for the longest, especially mainly for most of last year, a lot of the banks simply just turned off the lending faucet, and they got into portfolio management. And some part of this year too, now they're starting to open it up a little bit. And I think with the anticipation of the rates going down, that's also going to spur more interest as well. The thing that also the thing about small businesses is that sometimes they just don't know. They don't know. Like I said, we've worked with a lot of startups, and our business development has somebody on their team. They actually can help somebody put a business plan together, help them put their projections together. And so those are things that we try to work with. We don't simply just send out, okay, here's the application. We let them know, okay, contact us, and we can walk you through the process of filling out that application. And so we don't once might think that we give them something and they're like, oh yeah, what do I do with this? I don't know what to do. And I'm always telling people is ask questions. There's no such thing as a stupid question. The only stupid questions are the ones you never ask. And so, like I said, we're there. And it's funny, I got a call a couple weeks ago at 7:00 from somebody, and they were like, I was just going to leave a voice message. And I said, well, I just have my phone with me. And I was able to answer their question right then and there.
We kind of briefly talked about some of the borrowers getting turned away from banks, credit unions, whatever the case is. What are some of the obstacles or hurdles that you see small businesses, startups kind of have to overcome if they want to be able to borrow or become a borrower that you're interested in or a bank is interested in?
Well, one first thing is they have to have a solid business plan. They have great projections. We typically require 2 years of projections, but you have to have detailed projections, and you have to be able to say how you put these numbers together. You can't simply just throw some numbers on a piece of paper saying, this is what I want. Okay, tell me the story behind these numbers. Okay, how do you know this is what's going to cost for your equipment? How do you know this is what your salary is going to be, your insurance, and so forth? And we could sit there and try to help them with that. But the other thing is collateral. Collateral is a huge component that a lot of small businesses have to hurdles to overcome. And so we try to be creative. We're not always successful. If we're not able to get them to the finish line, we give them the process, try to help them with the process. What do you need to get accomplished before you come back to us or someone else?
Got it. That sounds extremely helpful. So, let's say if I was a startup or I'm starting up a new business concept. Mm-hmm. Could I potentially be a fit, or are you strictly looking for entrepreneurs, business people who maybe don't necessarily have other business experience? or does that even matter at all?
Well, you have to know what you're going to do. I mean, you have to, because a lot of people think that, okay, I can open up a business, but there's more to it than that. You're going to need working capital. How you going to be able to, because you're going to need time to establish your business. Just because you open a business doesn't mean businesses will start flocking in right away. You got to have a plan as to how you can be able to market that business.
Are you thinking of partnering, or do you already offer this, like with organizations that maybe offer business coaches as volunteers or mentors to some of the businesses you work with?
We're always open to collaborations. I mean, that's I mean, anything that's going to be for the betterment of the St. Louis community, we're willing to take a chance on.
Got it.
Because I mean, we're a nonprofit, so we're here to help. So
Makes sense.
yep.
Is there anything else you think we should cover in terms of the St. Louis Economic Development Partnership? Because we're about to wrap up the show. It's been a quick half an hour, I know, but the information you just provided, I think, is invaluable. The information Jeff provided as well was extremely important. I think a lot of folks are gonna find a lot of value and want to reach out. But is there anything else you think we should cover?
No, I think the website, Kristen Lampkin they just revamped their website, and the marketing team did a phenomenal job. And so all the contact information is there, and everybody is there to help you. So reach out. I mean, I tell people, just call me. You have a question, just call me. And you got a concept or an idea for something, talk to me about it. And I can tell you, okay, here's what you need to do, and put you in touch with somebody that can to help you get to the next level. Because the backbone of any community is small business.
I would 100% agree with that. Before we end each show, we do like to ask guests for their hole-in-one, which is just your greatest piece of advice that you can offer someone today, either in life or business. It doesn't matter. Do you have a hole-in-one you can share with us?
Well, I always simply say, don't be afraid to try. And because the world is full of people who look back on their life and say, I wish I had done this, I wish I'd done that. And the other thing I would say is, take time for your family. No one's ever said that when they got older saying, I wish I had to work more. They always saying, I wish I'd spent more time with my family.
That's a great point. I appreciate you sharing that. Darrell, we're going to link the website and your LinkedIn in the show notes. Is there anything else or any other way that people should contact you or the Economic Development Partnership?
No, that'll be it, man. Like I said, they'll get me. If they reach out and call me, they'll get me. I mean, I typically return phone calls within a couple of hours, but definitely within 24 hours. So there's not going to be a case where you're going to be looking days and days and saying, why didn't that person, Raj told me this person's going to do this and I never heard from him. Everybody on my team's the same way. We will get back to you.
Awesome. Happy to have you in the St. Louis region. I think St. Louis could use, a couple million more of you running around and helping the community. And I'm excited for what you guys are doing, and also excited for just where the region's headed. I know I'm not from here. I don't have the roots you have here, but
you've been here long enough, so you're considered a local now. So.
I appreciate it. But thanks for your time, Darrell.
No problem. Anytime. Thanks for having me.